Okay, polishing. Now I'm cheating here. I wasn't feeling like getting in front of the camera the other day. It was late in the day, and I got out the polishing stuff and started to chase what's going to work. And it's considerably more complicated than I thought it would be. I was hoping we could one-step the car. Instead of one-stepping, I'm three-stepping. So I'll explain. But the process is quite a bit more involved and dramatic than I intended it to be. And so I've been working on it the last couple of days. I've done basically the front clip of the car, at least some of it. And I'm working through each part and piece one step at a time. And the car's going to take quite a while to polish. But let me explain the methodology. First, let me explain some of the products I've used thus far, and then we'll explain the methodology on why I'm choosing this process and what's working, what didn't work. All right, so I've got, I almost exclusively use the 3-inch pneumatic when I'm in here, so I don't use my LHR 75E, the electric version. In fact, mine I had to send in to get new brushes on it, my original 3-inch, so I sent that back to Rupes to get just a tune-up. I do have two of them. I have another one at the house. I haven't even felt the need to bring over. So I'm using the LHR 75 pneumatic. This is a 15 millimeter orbit, so a little bit bigger orbit, a little less torque, or a lot less torque than the electric version, but this sucker is amazing. The only problem is most of you can't use this unless you have a air compressor that'll do, at least probably 13, 14, 15 CFM. And even my 80-gallon tank, the thing's running all the time when we're using it. But this sucker is amazing. So, and before you get too bent out of shape, I know it sounds loud, but it's way quieter than the electric one. So don't get too bent out of shape. I don't find the need to have ear protection here. Second machine, LHR 15 Mark III. A lot of people are always asking, do you do a 21 or a 15? Especially on this car. I'm very rarely even able to use this because of all the harsh angles. LHR 15, the 5-inch backing plate, 6-inch face pad is the way to go. So 6-inch face on the Rupes pads, and then 5-inch, slightly over 5-inch Meguiar's microfiber cutting pad. So LHR 15, I actually shortened the power cord because I think the power cord's too long. Be careful with that because it took me a while to get my trigger. We had to get Bryce's baby hands in there to fix the trigger because I messed it up by shortening it. Yeah, take the cover off, and here technically I wouldn't call it voiding the warranty, but you're doing that at your own risk. It's not really much you can mess up other than the trigger. The other two machines, I have the long neck nano with a 1-inch backing plate and the random orbit, the 12 millimeter orbit tool on it. And then I have the short neck with a 2-inch. I found the 2-inch necessary on a lot of the trim, a lot of the carbon fiber stuff. And right now on there is a Lake Country cutting pad. But these two, you don't need both. Just so I don't have to switch from 1-inch to 2-inch backing plate, I find that a lot of times I'll get both of them out so that I can get the project done. So in the process, I've used a bunch of different products, a bunch of different pads to try to figure out what works. So I've used already 5 3-inch Meguiar's microfiber cutting pads. I've used one 2-inch microfiber cutting, Lake Country microfiber cutting pad. I've used 5 1-inch microfiber cutting pads already. I'm gonna have to go wash those. I also tried some blue wool from Rupes, yellow wool, some 5-inch, so 3-inch and then 5-inch wool and Meguiar's microfiber cutting pads. And then I've also tried tried one-stepping, and so I've used a few of these pads. I'll give you an assessment of every product that I used. What I don't want to do is I don't want to have to go wash the pads in mid-process. I want to wash it when I'm done. So that's why I say you need 6, 7, 8 pads, and having an arsenal of different tools, different polishes and things like that I find very useful. So what we will be using for the rest of the project is this, we'll be using microfiber cutting for our first step. Second step, we're going to be using Rupes medium wool. I'll explain why in a minute when we get over to the car. And then we'll be finishing with Rupes, probably actually white. So I haven't tested the finishing step yet, but I'll likely be using Rupes white with Sonax Perfect Finish to finish the car. Other tools I've been using, the Obsessed Garage version. This is the old version, but the Obsessed Garage version of a Pt.1 tactical light. So that's this. So I've been using this light. This for some areas, especially on the black. I've been using the yellowest version of the Scan Grip light. So this is the Sunmatch 3 in the in 2500 Kelvin. I've been using the Color Match the Pen R, in its yellowest version. I think it's 3000 Kelvin. And I've also been using, when I really need to get a quality angle, I've been using the little micro match or mini match on the same 2700 Kelvin at full output. So I've been using a combination mainly of these three lights, and a lot of cars I won't really need lights. So you'll see me, like when we did Adam's car, I mean the lights overhead were perfectly fine for me to kind of look and see what I needed to see. But on this car, and I'm not even gonna show you any of this stuff. My eyes hurt from yesterday looking and trying to figure out what works. And so polishes, what I've used thus far to try to figure out what works the best, my good old standby Jescar Correction Compound, Sonax Perfect Finish. Also, I bought some ACA 500 from 3D and Sonax CutMax. And what we found is the paint is rock hard. I couldn't get any correction, like nothing was happening. So all the little scratches and all the little issues, like nothing was correcting out. So I found, so I tried wool, tried blue wool, tried yellow wool, tried microfiber cutting, tried different combinations. And what I found works best, and even then it's still slow going, is Sonax CutMax. And I actually just bought this in anticipation that I'd be doing this in a bunch of cars here over the next couple of weeks, because I really hated the experience of doing a whole car with M101 and getting dust everywhere. So I've used this before. I haven't used this before. Neither one of them dust, so that's really positive. It doesn't make a huge mess. But on this particular paint, I found that this product works best with 4 to 5 passes on microfiber cutting, and as much pressure as I can muster without the machine stalling. I even contemplated getting out the rotary on this thing, but after several tries of doing Jescar and these different compounds, I found that CutMax worked the best. So CutMax, the problem is, if you look over here on the contours, this car has more right angles and 120-degree angles and curves than pretty much any other car I've ever polished. And so what happens on this paint is the CutMax will do some correcting, get it to say 90-95%, and then in all these curved areas ends up leaving tick marks. So I'm leaving microfiber remnants as it digs into the various curves and transitions, and so I was frustrated as heck. I mean, I tried, Jescar wasn't cutting enough, CutMax was barely cutting enough, but was leaving all kinds of remnants behind. And so normally those remnants, if it leaves any kind of tick marks or anything, or microfiber marring behind, I'm not getting any toweling marks, but normally you just go to your finishing, and the Sonax would clean it up. But it wasn't cleaning it up at all. And so what I started experimenting with was some other options. What if I followed on microfiber with Jescar? That didn't work. What if I sprayed a little water when I'm doing CutMax? Did that help? No, that didn't help. Blowing out the pad more often, making a second pass. One of the things that has become kind of conventional wisdom from, Kevin Brown has made this popular. And instead of chasing all kinds of polishes and changing the product, Now you're changing variable after variable. You're better off attempting to adjust the product that you have, adjust amount of liquid, spraying water, amount of type of pad, pressure, things like that, instead of just swapping. So I did my best to attempt to make sure that I wasn't just jumping around all over the place. So I wanted to find a base product that worked pretty well and then make adjustments to try to get it to function. And so doing CutMax, using less compound, more compound, trying all these different various versions really didn't change the result. The result was in all these tighter curved areas, as I'd run a light, it was really hard to see. In fact, the reflection of the light, so if I hold up my light, I couldn't show you this on camera if I tried. It's hard enough to see in person. So when I'm looking at the light, and this hurts your brain, so normally you would just kind of look at the reflection and follow it up, but I'm having to get the bulb right where, right in the spot I'm looking, and I have to follow the bulb up and take real close, pay super, super close attention, almost to the point of going cross-eyed to see it, because this ceramic matrix gray, metallic-ish, white-ish, grayish paint in these conditions just right to turning the lights off and everything. Just super, super complicated to see. But it was certainly there, and I don't want that. I don't really care about it being perfect. We talked about this on the M5, where I joked that I was just moving polish around. The M5, I used M101, and I still couldn't get out. There was all kinds of little deeper scratches and things in the car, but I wasn't getting any kind of marring from the tick marks from our microfiber on the M5, because all the panels are basically flat. There's nothing flat on it. Everything has a weird curve or an angle to it. So what I finished on after trying a bunch of different things was putting Jescar Correction Compound. So this is where the obnoxious third step comes in. It's really not necessary on the third step on these other areas, but in any kind of curved area where I end up with leftover, like on the sides of the cars, I end up with leftover microfiber marks, then I have to follow with this, which is a great pad. I very rarely use this, but great pad because it doesn't build up a lot of heat. It's a little bit more contourable, a little bit plusher than the microfiber. So I found that following with 3-inch wool with Jescar Correction Compound is what's correcting out my microfiber marring, microfiber issues. So I probably could finish it. So this whole hood has been done in, this hood, that fender, I haven't done this yet, has been done with the second step. And I could probably just call it a day. It's finishing amazing. Just because I'm in it this far, I'll probably still finish with perfect finish. Follow it late afterward with like I said, I'll probably do white. I'll be sure to cue you in on that. Rupes white and Sonax perfect finish. The reason why I think white will probably work well is all these contours having the more kind of the plushness and the pliability of the white pad will probably make sense. And so the concept here, I think, is to get the car looking great, but I'm going to have to take an extra step. When I again started thinking I would do 1 step, now I'm having to do 3. So I'm going to get everything geared up, show you some polishing, show you some of this. Then we'll go, actually I should probably go work on the door and show you the CutMax first. So what I'll probably do is we'll do the door from start to finish. I'm not going to show you hours and hours of polishing on this car. I'm going to show you what's working. I should also mention that all the aftermarket carbon fiber stuff, just a simple microfiber cutting. So I've been doing a lot of 3-inch pad with Jescar, and then I'll do a quick finishing of it, but I could probably just leave it. So I do have to polish this. The carbon fiber on there responded the same. The other question people would have is, did this respond differently than this because it's different materials? And no, I'm finding it all to respond to pretty much the same need, which is CutMax, a bunch of passes, blowing out pads off, and a normal amount of product, making sure that the thing is lubricated and primed. But outside of that, the whole car is responding the same. I'm sure that the A and B pillars will respond differently, and I'll be sure to capture the different areas and how they need to be polished. But let's go work on we'll go work on the driver's side door and see how it goes. All right, so like I've done with the rest of the car, while I'm prepping, because we had all kinds of residue from PPF, so I've just been kind of looking around and getting Tarex out to wipe off the various areas. But because I drove the car, it sat outside of the garage at my house for like 6 or 8 hours until I got it over here. And because I then drove it over here, what I'm doing is I'm eraser cleaning each section. It didn't, you know, the winter time is pretty clean in Florida, so it didn't get dirty enough for me to do any kind of waterless washing. But I do need to kind of clean up the area and prep it for the polishing step. Plus there's box dust and things in here as well. I should probably turn on my jet filtration, but I've been too lazy to do that. To think about it ahead of time. You know, jet filtration doesn't do any good unless you plan ahead. Have it run. So just get all the dust and dirt, get this prepared and ready to go. The beauty of having this lift is that I can move the car up and down as needed. It just makes it so great. And so we're gonna do a multi-step process. I'm gonna do my best to keep an eye on it and look at what's happening, try to chase little scratches and things like that. I have been able to get most of the scratches out. Unlike the M5, I was, chasing scratches really wasn't helpful. And again, on this color, you could almost just leave it alone. I'm gonna deal with the door jambs afterwards, so there's all kinds of residue and crap on there, so we'll deal with that after the fact. But see, there's a little bit of, no, that was just dirt. Let me see, I thought there was a little bit of glue. This side hasn't had as much glue as the other side did. A little bit of glue there. So what I would use to address PPF glue would be just to use, I would just use some Tarex. Okay, let's work on this. So the first thing I do on because these are relatively newish pads, but I probably used it twice. And so I blow out the pads before I get started. And you'll notice this door, I'll probably do this section. And see, this is such a huge transition here that it's almost better to just do the whole darn door with a 3-inch, because there's all these weird curves and stuff like that, and we'll see about whether the 5-inch fits in there better. But what we're gonna end up with, I'm gonna get the light out here in a second, but I'm gonna end up with marring from the microfiber pad around here, probably also up in the cup of the top of the door. I should be okay in the bulk areas where I can get it to, as long as I keep the pad flat and I don't scour it, using the CutMax. I've found that I haven't scoured this area, but in order to get a uniform finish on the whole thing, I'm still gonna finish, I'm gonna mid-step it with the wool pad. So let me blow this out. So one of the great parts about having hose reels on all 4 corners is that I can keep my hose reel in the proper location. So again, this is a pneumatic tool. It's air tool, 15mm orbit on a 3-inch pad, 3-inch backing plate. So the way to line up your pad is pretty simple. On a microfiber pad, you just have to do it from the back. On a foam pad that has a circle that has a hole in it, you can usually line it up on the center mark. Also notice I've got a line so I can make sure that my pad is rotating. I'm also probably gonna use a bunch of the nano on this as well. Just gonna set this here. And then, especially with a more aggressive polish, I'm constantly shaking it up to make sure I don't end up with the watery top. That's also how especially with Sonax polishes, I find if you keep them shaken up, then they won't dust. Keeping the oils and the polishes all together. And so I'm going to prime this pad because I haven't used this pad yet. Take my buttering tool and just work it in. Just make sure all the fibers get some material, and then I'll put a couple of dots on here. But first, let's get a light out and see what we're working with. So these lights have the option This one goes for between 3,000 and I think 6,500. And because of the color of this car, 3,000 and even a little bit yellower, this one starts at 2,700 Kelvin. So notice how yellow that is. I find that using, now this one's a little brighter, so it kind of hurts my eyes more, but I'm really having to look at, the bulb through the paint in order to see anything. And again, we could bring the camera in here, but we're just not, you're not going to be able to see it. And it's not terrible, but there's all kinds of little toweling and just little marks. Again, this car was all PPF'd, and I don't know if some of it's probably been repainted, but some of it has been dealer washed a couple of times. I washed it a couple of times without any protection on it. And so there's quite a bit of marring and stuff that we need to address here. So I'm going to start on this side of the door and work my way through it. So I suspect that this area here, oh yeah, there's all kinds of scratches. So I want to see if I can get those out, but I'll probably leave a different type of scratch behind with this microfiber pad. So we're primed, a couple of dots. I'm going to start up here, work this section. I'm just going to be careful, but a lot of people would tape this. It's my car, so if I mess it up, I'm okay with it, but I won't. So this is higher RPM, lower torque. So I'm going to run this a little faster than I would normally in electric. I mean, that's doing the trick. So right here, I don't have any microfiber marring, so I'm clean because it's flat. When I start to come into this dished area, I'll likely end up with some marring. I'm going to blow this out. So on this section, especially using CutMax, I'm blowing it out on each pass. Each group of passes, if you will. Okay, so now I'm going to treat this section. And, you know, I probably could get the bigger out. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this, and then I'm going to get the 5-inch and do that bigger section. But look how aggressive this is. Kind of hard to get in here. I'm going to bring the car up a little bit. That's the beauty of having a lift. Why crouch over? We're going to see quite a bit of clarity change on all the carbon fibers, all kind of milky looking. But when I take the polisher to it, it makes a huge difference. So with any diminishing polish, you want to make sure you spread it around. And you should probably spread it slower. I just get impatient. Notice my pad has a little cut here. It may not hold up. So I want to get it spread around the area that I'm working, because I've mentioned this many times in other videos, but if I start working this area and then I move over to this area and I work that for a little while and then this area, I'm getting a different result on all three areas because I have polish that's more broken down. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing the same amount of work in the entire section. You could also consider opening the door so you're not smacking off of this panel. It's pretty level here, so I find it okay to keep it closed. See what we got. So that transition, that as it cups in, is what's creating a lot of the ticking from the microfiber that I'm then going back and fixing. So what I'm hopefully doing is removing the deeper scratches and imperfections on this rock hard paint. And then I'm coming back on my second pass, which will show you as we get through this door. I'm hopefully fixing that. It's so hard to see. Yeah, I mean, that looks remarkably better. I'd say it's, especially for this color, I see there's still, we're gonna get it to like 95% with this 3-step process. But it's interesting. I mean, it's freaking hard, man. It's just not hard to correct this out. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, you know, I've done all kinds of, tried more or less polish, different passes, spraying water, doing different things. I probably tried about 12 or 13 different things, and this simple combo, just doing CutMax on the microfiber cutting, has gotten me the best results. Good news is I haven't been getting any kind of toweling marks. I experienced that quite a bit on the Audi R8 that we did a while back, where I was getting all kinds of toweling. God dang, it's hard to see. I don't know. Freaking blinds me too. Yeah, so I got in the deeper valley, I've got a little bit of microfiber mess there, but not too terrible. And I do get lazy sometimes and just go blow it out every third time. So I'm just going to treat this whole bottom section. I'll come and do this. I'm going to do the top section. Then I'm going to come back with the bigger 5-inch and do the rest. This really needs the nano here. 1-inch, 2-inch. It's a little bit too tight. Let's see. It's a little bit too much. I'll take and wipe some of that off. Everybody's gonna be yelling at me, you need a table. I got a table right there. So that's what this car is gonna take. If you have a Corvette and you wanna do it right, you need a lot of tools. You don't need a lot of tools, but you're gonna want a lot of tools. Because this is some really aggressive, everything's square. Square and a little bit lazy, but from a design perspective, but it does take quite a bit of work to get it right. You see, with that 3000 and 3500, I can't see squat. Yeah, I mean, that's acceptable to me. It looks pretty good. So let's, I guess what I'll do is I'll just save this whole section and we'll do that last. So let's do the upper part of the door, which is even more visible. So when you're compounding and doing the defect removal, this is the most critical step. And so the next step, steps 2 and 3, I don't have to be quite as discerning about it. But right now, I'm getting up in there, I'm checking with my light, trying to stay and be as meticulous as possible to remove as much as possible. And then the follow-up steps are more about just jeweling it up or shining it up. Right now, it's not so much about shining it up. That's why it's acceptable to have some tick marks from the microfiber on some of these curved areas, because I'm gonna come back and fix that here shortly. I mean, that's the whole concept of, you know, like doing rotary polishing, is if you're rotary polishing, you're generally adding a defect and then you're gonna come back and remove those defects after the fact. DAs are more forgiving in that sense, in that you're not generally adding as many defects through the process. In fact, I almost didn't want to do it. Didn't want to add that defect that I'm getting from the microfiber on some of the curved panels, but it's the only way I could get any kind of movement of some of the scratches. And then once I kind of get in a groove here, I don't have to check quite as much. I'll check larger panels or larger sections. So I'll polish this whole section, then I'll check my work after I'm done, instead of checking it too often. Yeah, I almost want to use the darn nano up here. So let's do a first pass with this, and then we'll go in and follow with the nano. Yeah, it's kind of pointless. I wonder about the 2-inch. 1-inch. 1 inch is the way to go. So this curve is so odd. We really need a 1-inch to get in there. I'm going to separate this into 3 sections. What a pain, man. Tiny little bit. Do this middle section here. I'm running it pretty aggressive too at speed 5. Remember that in dual action mode, the smaller the pad, the more aggressive it is. I know everybody likes rotary mode on this, but I don't. I prefer dual action all around. But there's no right or wrong way to detail, you just do it. And if you get a result, you get the result. You can't argue a result. I guess you could argue with the amount of paint removed. So technically we could just 3000 grit this whole thing and maybe possibly remove less paint than what we're doing now. But that's the skill set to do that is much, much higher. The requirement is much higher. Let's see if this is doing anything. The nice thing about this polish is there's no, uh-oh. Whoa. What is that? Is that a touch-up spot? Doesn't feel like one. I don't think I burned it. I didn't even touch that spot yet. Dang it, man. Still some scratches in there. Ah, dang. There's one right there. After just beating the crap out of that thing, it still needs a little more work. Again, these defects that I'm managing here are not going to be visible in this. Maybe in like the bright sun on a totally clear day if you were really looking for it. But I'd like to get almost all of them out if I can. And to keep the pad rotating. That's a good indicator if you're rolling into it properly, is if you keep the pad moving. Again, this is a Lake Country 1-inch microfiber cutting pad from their HDO line. I have them in the store. It's hard to find the right ones, so I want to make it as simple as possible for you. These 1-inch pads, notice I talked in the beginning, I used a bunch of them. I mean, I like to swap these out pretty regularly. So I'm running like speed 4.5, which is a little quicker than I normally run, but I feel like I need to break out a sledgehammer for this paint. Need to be careful on that edge and whatever the heck's going on here. Getting polish everywhere. That's part of the game, I guess. Don't lift your DA, because that's what happens. You lift it early. Especially these 1-inch pads tend to load up pretty quickly. All right, so let's see. Something tells me it's not all. Pretty good. Yeah, really good here. So a lot of this little bit of leftover microfiber marring will clean up with the second step. So let's do the bulk. Let's do the big section of the door, the big one, the 5-inch. Let's come up a little bit first. You want to get it in all the fibers. I find that kind of flipping them back and forth, moving the thing around. This is not washer modded. On the Mark III, I haven't found the need to do it. It's been fine. A couple of dots. Let it rip. Spread on speed 2, which I usually only do for camera, and then I say screw it, and I just stay on speed 4 and roll. Let's at least do it right for this little section here. I need to come up higher. It's too low. We'll do like a 2x2 section, up to 4, hammer down. Gonna roll with the body panel. Make about 4 passes. Try to keep the pad flat. Yeah, this door just is calling for me to just stay going up and down, not left to right. So, a couple of pointers here. One, this is not flush, unlike that section, so we should probably open the door, but that's up to you. I would suggest that. Do as I say, not as I do. Because you'll get a little bit, we'll see what it looks like under the light, but I may have to open it up anyway so I can really get that edge well. So this, I would expect to not see microfiber tick marks or marring. I would expect this to look pretty good, but let's see. Not seeing any leftover remnants versus, or here it is. It's so hard to see, man. Yeah, it looks really clear. Lots of clarity with that, even with a compound that finishes down pretty well. This again this is a diminishing polish. That's acceptable to me. So we'll do that same procedure.